My name is Amanda Connors. I'm 28, a senior accountant at a firm nobody outside finance has heard of. I lead a quiet life in a quiet building, free from chaos or destruction. Everything I have I've built myself. My degree, my career, my credit score, even my kitchen table. No shortcuts, no handouts. Yet if you asked my family, they'd probably call me the cold one. Not because I've ever shouted, stormed out, or acted cruelly. Simply because I stopped cleaning up after them. I have an older sister, Erin, 2 years ahead of me, but somehow always trailing behind. Erin has a knack for turning setbacks into catastrophes and making everyone else responsible. Lost a job? The boss was toxic. Kicked out of an apartment? The roommates were jealous. Missed a bill? She's trying her hardest. And my parents, Carol and Frank, never question her. They adjust, rearrange. And when that doesn't fix it, they turn to me. You're stable, Amanda. You're lucky you can help. If you've ever felt betrayed by those who should have been your greatest supporters, tell me where you're watching from. That phrase followed me for years. Help with the car, help with rent, help with bail, always help. And on the rare occasions I said no, they acted as if I was the one burning bridges. I learned early that my worth wasn't tied to being loved. It was in being useful. But usefulness has limits, and they were about to discover mine. Sunday dinners in our house had a rhythm. The same casserole, the same table, the same polite tension disguised as manners. That evening felt different, rehearsed somehow. Mom met me at the door with a smile too wide to be genuine. You look so thin, sweetie. Are you eating enough? Dad barely said a word, offering only a nod and a distracted, "Hey, kiddo." Erin was already at the table, scrolling on her phone, avoiding my gaze like a teen called to the principal's office. I knew the signs. When Mom was overly sweet and Dad went silent, they were about to drop news I wouldn't like. We made it through the salad. Mom praised the weather like it was an accomplishment. Dad kept refilling his glass. Erin poked at her food as if it might bite back. Then Mom set down her fork, folded her hands, and put on that practiced smile she saved for requests wrapped in guilt. "Amanda," she said softly, "we've been talking. Erin's had a rough time lately, and well, she's going to be moving in with you for a little while." Just like that. No discussion, no negotiation. She said it like she was offering cookies, like I'd obviously say yes. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for me to resist. Waiting for the selfish argument they could point to. I glanced at Erin. She looked up briefly, then away. Dad cleared his throat, already bracing for conflict. Instead, I smiled. "Of course," I said lightly. "If it helps Erin get back on her feet, I don't see why not." The silence that followed was sharp. Mom blinked, surprised. Dad exhaled as if he'd dodged a bullet. Erin leaned back, a smug look spreading across her face. None of them noticed how still I became after that, how quiet. They assumed I'd given in. But what they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment for weeks. And I had no intention of letting Erin, or any of them, move into a place that no longer existed. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to deceive my family. It was years in the making. Years of silent disappointments, guilt-laden favors, and sacrifices remembered only by me. In my family, survival always came with strings attached, and being the strong one only meant being the most convenient to use. When I was 21, Erin's car was repossessed. She called me, sobbing, saying she couldn't get to her new job, that this one was different, that she just needed a little help getting started. My credit was spotless. Co-signing felt minor. 3 weeks later, she stopped showing up. Missed payments. Guess whose credit suffered? At 23, Mom called me crying. The mortgage was past due. Dad had been laid off. Erin had moved back home. The next morning, I transferred $2,000. No acknowledgement came. At Christmas, Mom handed me a mug labeled, "World's Best Daughter." I almost laughed. At 25, Erin got a DUI, the first one we knew about at least. Dad asked me to keep it quiet, saying it would ruin the family's reputation. I covered the lawyer's fees. Erin never spoke a word. A year later, when she got pulled over again and I refused to step in, Mom called me cold. "You'll never understand what it means to worry for someone you love," she said. "Erin's life is harder than yours." That was the moment I didn't suspect. I knew. They didn't see me. They saw a utility, a faucet to turn on when something broke, a wallet with a smile. I started to pull away, politely with refusals, changing the subject, saying, "I'll think about it," instead of yes. They noticed. They didn't like it. One night, I found myself alone in my apartment. The condo I'd bought without help, decorated with clearance finds, paid for month by month with spreadsheets and quiet diligence. I stared at the front door and realized I no longer felt safe there. It wasn't truly mine. Whenever they wanted something, it was always ours. My time, my money, my patience. So I made a choice. I called a realtor, sold the condo quietly and legally. No announcements. Then I moved into a small rental across town. No one asked where, and I didn't offer. I could have, but I didn't, not out of spite, not for revenge, but for self-preservation. Growing up in a family that only remembers your usefulness, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is disappear enough to breathe. The text started Monday. We'll bring Erin's mattress Saturday morning. Frank's loading the boxes Friday night. She's excited to finally have her own space. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They were speaking to a version of me that no longer existed. Each message assumed I'd open the door, rearrange my life, absorb the weight silently. They had done it before. They just didn't know I had stopped listening. By Thursday, Mom was texting daily. "Let me know if you need anything cleaned before she moves in. Erin says she won't be a burden. She's bringing her own dishes." I chuckled quietly over coffee. She hadn't washed a dish in years. But I let it go. I didn't push back. I didn't correct them. I waited. Saturday morning, I left early. Coffee first, then a drive across town to nowhere in particular. I wandered through a farmer's market without buying anything, stood in the sun longer than necessary. My phone vibrated 3 times before I checked it. Missed calls, voicemails. I let the 4th ring through. Amanda? It was Mom, but not her usual soft voice. The brittle one, layered with panic. "What's going on?" she demanded. "There's someone here. Some man. He says he lives in the condo. Says you don't live here anymore." I let the silence linger. I wanted her to feel it. The unfamiliar space, the missing certainty. "You didn't tell us," she snapped. "You never said a word." "No," I said evenly. "I didn't." There was a scramble in the background. The rustle of bags, Dad's low sharp voice, Erin saying something I couldn't hear. "Amanda," Mom hissed. "What is this?" "I sold the condo," I said simply. "Weeks ago." "You what?" I moved out quietly. I didn't think it mattered. No one asked where I lived, so I didn't say. For a moment, silence. I pictured them on that porch, bags on the ground, arms crossed, realizing they'd planned an invasion and shown up at the wrong castle. Then Dad's voice cut in. "You lied to us. You said she could move in." I said, "If it helps Erin, I don't see why not." I didn't say where. Another pause. A sharp inhale from Mom, from Erin. Finally. "So what? We're just supposed to figure it out now." She sounded young, not angry, just lost. For a fleeting second, I almost answered. But I didn't. Here's what they didn't know. I hadn't changed the locks out of anger. I hadn't sold the condo to make a point. I did it because I was tired of living somewhere that never felt mine. I did it because I deserved to walk into my own home without bracing for impact. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for people who refuse to change is stop making space for them. They thought it was over. They were wrong. By evening, they were at my door. I knew they'd come. Even as I sipped coffee, even as their voicemails piled up, I knew Mom wouldn't let it go. She'd dig, call, or show up just to prove a point. No matter how far I moved, I was still reachable. Still obligated. By sunset, the knock came. 3 quick, clipped hits. The kind that sound polite but barely hold composure. I peered through the peephole. Carol, Frank, Erin, and a trunk full of boxes sat on the curb like moving day. I opened the door halfway. "You found me," I said flatly. Mom looked flushed, her lipstick faded. Hair pushed back from running her hands through it too many times. "We tried calling," she said, voice tight. "We didn't think you'd actually. We didn't think you'd be here." "It's my apartment," I said. But you insisted. Dad's voice rising now. You said she could move in. And now here we are, with all her belongings, and you're acting like strangers. I didn't budge. I didn't raise my voice. I never said she could move in. What I actually said was, if it helps Aaron, I don't see why not. That was at the old place, which, just to remind you, I don't live in anymore. Aaron stepped closer, then crossed her arms. Her cheeks glowed, not with shame, but with anger. This is petty, Amanda. You always act like you're above everyone else. But this is just cruel. I tilted my head. You packed up your entire life and drove across town to settle into someone's apartment, without even checking if it still existed. That isn't cruelty. That's entitlement. Aaron's voice broke. You're my sister. Yes, I said. Great. And for years, you've treated that like free housing. Dad stepped in between us, his tone sharp with warning. Enough, Amanda. We're not leaving. We've tolerated a lot from you. You owe this to your sister. There it was, the word that always lingered unspoken. Oh. As if every dollar I earned, every hour I worked, every sleepless night solving problems that weren't mine, had been logged somewhere, part of an unspoken contract I never agreed to. I stepped back and picked up my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, narrowing her eyes. I didn't answer. I dialed. 3 rings. Then 911. What's your emergency? My voice stayed steady. Yes, I have family members outside my apartment refusing to leave. They aren't on the lease. They weren't invited. I'd like to report trespassing. Aaron's jaw dropped. Frank muttered under his breath. Mom looked like I'd hit her. Amanda, she whispered, almost pleading. You're calling the police on your own family. I asked you to leave, I said. You didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Aaron's voice trembled with fury. This is going to ruin everything. Do you know what people will think? Do you know what they'll say? Yes, I said. They'll say I finally stopped opening my door. Mom blinked, her voice shrinking. You used to be kind. You used to notice when I was hurting. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense, heavy with every boundary ignored, every word swallowed, every moment I said yes when I wanted to scream no. 10 minutes later, a patrol car arrived. The officer stepped out, tall and composed, hand resting near her belt but relaxed. Evening, she said. We got a call about trespassing. I nodded. That's me. She glanced at my parents, at Aaron, at the car still loaded with bags. Ma'am, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is our daughter, Frank said. It's a family matter. And this is her home. The officer's reply was firm. It is her residence, which you cannot occupy without permission. Aaron looked like she might either cry or throw something, or both. You're going to regret this, Amanda. No, I said. Almost everything before this, I regretted. This is the first thing I'm certain about. The next morning, I woke to 12 missed calls. 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad, the rest from unknown numbers, probably cousins or family friends I hadn't spoken to since graduation. Then came a text. Why would you do this to your own sister? Your mom is devastated. Aaron is sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted? I didn't reply. I just scrolled. Eventually, I found it. A public Facebook post from Mom. 3 paragraphs, heartbreak emojis sprinkled throughout. A photo of Aaron as a toddler. We raised both our daughters to care for each other, but one of them has forgotten what that means. We are heartbroken that Amanda, so successful, so fortunate, would turn her back in our time of need. Aaron didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since I was 12, calling me selfish, cold, entitled. It wasn't new, just louder. I stared at the screen for a long while. Then, for the first time in my life, I posted a response thread. Simple, no flourish, no hashtags. A screenshot of the $2,000 mortgage transfer. Screenshot of my name on Aaron's car loan, with the collections notice. A photo of the lawyer's invoice from her DUI case. A timeline of every one-off favor I'd done since I was 21. The receipt for the condo sale. And finally, a message from Aaron 2 years ago, calling me a boring robot because I wouldn't let her crash for a month. I ended with one line. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. I turned off my phone. Not out of fear, but because I didn't need applause. I needed quiet. And for once I had it. That night, the apartment was still. No noise in the hallway, no buzzing phone, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional groan of old pipes settling. I made chamomile tea. Not for sleep. I didn't need it anymore. For ritual. A soft cup cupped in both hands. Steam rising like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. My phone lit up. Mom. Then Aaron. I didn't open the messages. I didn't have to. I knew the rhythm. Shock, anger, guilt, pleading. Always that order. I blocked both numbers. Not out of cruelty, not pride, because not every door deserves a knock forever. I stepped onto the balcony. Cold, but not biting. The kind of cold that reminds you you're alive. Below, the city hummed, headlights moving, someone walking a dog in an oversized spring coat. A neighbor 2 floors down waved. I waved back. Simple, but more real than most of the things I'd done out of obligation. Inside, I turned off the lights, one by one. Living room, kitchen, hallway. No pictures on the walls, no family photos. Just quiet. Just clean space. I didn't feel triumphant, bitter, or broken. I felt done. Done performing. Done explaining. Done being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned to breathe on their own. Out there, they were probably retelling the story, casting me as the villain, the cold one, the ungrateful daughter. Let them. I didn't come here to be loved. I came here to stop pretending. I didn't vanish. They just told the story as if I had.